A couple of Sundays ago, the pastor at my church gave a homily where he said, start thinking about, for Lent, when we're preparing what we're going to do for Lent, he said, start thinking about the person you want to be for Easter. And that, I thought that was really powerful, and it made me think of two things. The first thing is that cool Chris Young country song, The Man I Want to Be. That's a good song. We'll talk about that more later. But the more serious thing is Easter is the focus of Lent. Sometimes we forget that. We're not just doing our Lenten penance to be tough or anything. It's Easter. All our focus should be on Easter. And this whole framework of who do I want to be at Easter, I think is really powerful. So I just wanted to give a few reflections on that today on Mardi Gras. Well, just in case we needed that last little push to get us ready for the great fast that we're going to be doing. So when we're thinking about the person we want to be, the first thing that comes to mind for me is sin interferes with the person we want to be, right? So there's two parts of sin. When I sin, I get guilt and it damages my character. So, for example, if I were to cheat on my spouse, then the guilt is I deserve to go to hell because that injured a charity towards my spouse and towards God. Yeah, I go to hell. That's the guilt. But also it makes me the kind of person that cheats. That's the damage to the character, right? I'm no longer, because God made us good. There's fallen nature and all that, but God made us good. But now when I'm choosing this thing, I'm choosing to be the kind of person who does these things. If that kind of makes sense, we'll get more into that. But so confession helps with both these things. First, it removes the guilt. If I confess to God, I say, hey, look, I'm sorry, and I want to restore my relationship, right? He's like, good, awesome. He wipes away that guilt. But it also helps repair the damage we've done to our character. It doesn't fully get away because God is not interested in magic. He wants us to work on choosing the good, and that actually makes us better. It's a good thing. But one of the ways it helps us to repair the damage done to our character is through giving us penance, right? The penance is supposed to make up for that damage that we did, because not only do we have to get rid of the guilt, we also have to make up for what we did and restore our character. And Lent is this time of penance, this time of restoring our character, the time where God gives us a graced period to choose who we want to be. Because the devil, whenever we sin, the devil just wants to say, hey, look, that's your identity, you're that sin. He wants us to identify with that sin. He wants us to say, hey, you're just a cheater, you're just a violent person, you're just whatever kind of sin that we might have. The devil wants us to identify with that, because then we're going to defend that sin when we're defending ourselves. But so we can choose identifying with that sin, but we shouldn't, right? Lent is a time where we show, hey, no, I'm choosing God. I want to be this Christ-like person. I want to return to my baptismal vows, right? In Easter, we're all going to renew our baptismal promises, where we say, the devil has nothing to do with my life. Sin, I don't want to have anything to do with my life. And that's so important. So how can we choose that? How can we choose to follow God more closely, to be Christ? The person we want to be in Easter should be more specific to us too, but really the person we want to be is Alter Christus. We want to be other Christ. That's who we want to be in Easter. So the church gives us three things that every single one of us is called to do during Lent. That's prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. And I want to take these kind of backwards, because I've had these reflections from people asking me about these, and from readings I've been doing that I think will really help me to have a more fruitful Lent, and hopefully they can help you too. So first, almsgiving. What's almsgiving? That's when we give of our time, talent, or treasure to a brother or sister in need, right? That's basically what it is. I have something that somebody else needs, and I'm going to give of that. Okay, for our treasure, we know what that is. We have to give to the church. We have to support the people close to us that God has given us to help, and we have to help the people that God puts in our way, whichever way that is. So treasure, yeah, we know that. Talent, we all have talents that we're supposed to share with others. None of our talents are supposed to be just for us. But the thing I really wanted to focus on for this reflection is our time. So we're supposed to give our time, of course, to the church. and to charitable things. If you're not doing that, start doing that this Lent. But more important that I want us to think about is giving your time and my time, and this is a reflection that I'm having for me too, is giving your time to the domestic church, the family. Who in your family needs your time? Your son or your daughter, your mom, your dad, your grandparents. Who is it that you haven't seen or haven't seen enough? Who is alone? Who just wants you to share yourself with them? We want Christ to share himself with us. That's what heaven is. That's the whole point of everything we're doing. Well, we can't ask. St. Peter Christologist says, God, it's a mockery to ask for something that you won't give to somebody else. And that's really in his Lenten reflections. And that's really important. So think about who in your domestic church. Start with the person closest. Start with your spouse and your kids. Start with, your parents, those things. But who in your domestic church, who in your family needs your time, and give your time that. And that, I think when we think about it this way, starting with almsgiving, then fasting comes naturally. Because when I see where I want to give, I see that I have to give things up to be able to give effectively in that way. If I want to be the kind of person that spends time with my children, if I want to be like St. Joseph did, giving his time to Jesus, well, then I have to give other things that are taking up my time. I have to give up things like maybe social media, like maybe Facebook, maybe YouTube, maybe TikTok, stuff like that. So naturally, right, if I have to give my treasure to this cause, maybe like a soup kitchen or something, then I have these other expenses that I'm doing, maybe where I'm eating at fast food more often. Maybe I say, okay, I'm giving that up. See how almsgiving naturally flows to fasting. I was talking to some of the parents of my students in that I teach religious ed to. We were talking about we should give up for fasting, we should try to give up at least one bad habit we have and not take that up again during Easter, right? If there's something bad that's injuring our character, that's actually a bad thing, give that up. But for fasting, we should also try to give up one good thing that we're just giving up for love of God. This is a good thing. Like traditionally when Christians would give up meat. Meat is a good thing. We're not all called to be vegetarians. But they say that this is this really good thing that God's given me, but I don't need it, so I'm giving it up for love of God. So think about that. For fasting, we should give up at least one bad thing and at least one good thing. And the good thing we should take up again during Easter. And all this leads to prayer. And actually that Chris Young song again, because this might sound silly, but when I was reflecting on this, in the Chris Young song, The Man I Want to Be, he says, God, I'm asking you to come change me to the man I want to be. And that's what we need. We need to ask God, because God wants us to do all this work and stuff, but it's God who changes us into the person he wants us to be, and ultimately the person we want to be. So if you're doing all this but you're not asking God, then all this is just silliness and pointless. So you have to say, I'm going to spend these times in prayer, and I'm going to ask God for these things that I want, these changes I want, this person I want to be. So I hope those reflections are helpful on prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. Last thing I want to say is I'm challenging you and I'm challenging myself to commit to the penances we're doing in Lent. And I found what's really helpful in committing is, first of all, be specific. I think we all know that. If we're just doing general stuff, that's difficult. We should just give up, see opportunities to give up stuff or do penance during Lent that we could have planned for and take those. Yeah, that's good. But we should have specific, these are things. And what helps me is to have some way to be accountable for it, not just to myself, because I'm very forgiving. I think most people are very forgiving to ourselves. Oh, I couldn't have done that. So one thing that I do for accountability is I write it all down and I put it on the nightstand, and in the morning I look, okay, these are the things I'm trying to do, and in the evening I look and say, did I do that, did I not? And also I go over what I'm doing with my wife. You should have somebody that that can help you with this. Maybe it's not your spouse, maybe it's somebody else, but it's sometimes good, I think often good, to discuss what you're doing with somebody else that can check your progress. I hope you all have a blessed and holy Lent, and I hope we all grow more towards Christ this Lent, and in Easter we can have a joyful Easter.